Welcome to the Great Reset Opportunity Report. My name is Chris Blasi. Today's guest is Richard Checkin. Richard is the president of Asset Strategies International. Asset Strategies is a longtime precious metals dealer and dealer in other tangible assets. Today, Richard is going to share his insights on the stock market, the precious metals market, and talk about his forecast going out the next couple of years. Richard, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Chris. Thank you.
Rich, we're going to be talking a little bit about the precious metals market today. At the end, we're going to talk about something a great announcement that ASI is a official dealer in the precious metals composite, or the PMC ounce. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit more about ASI.
Sure. We're a 36-year-old company based out of Rockville, Maryland. We were founded in 1982 by my uncle, Michael Checkin, and his partner, Glenn O'Kirsch. For the full life of the company, we've sold precious metals, foreign currencies, rare coins, and we liken ourselves as full-service tangible and rare tangible asset dealers. We buy and sell. The reason we got into this business, the reason my uncle and his partner did, is based on an epiphany they both shared, centered around the Vietnamese refugees coming over as Saigon fell in '75. They were sent down to Eglin Air Force Base, which is one of the 5 camps that refugees moved in through to our country as they fled Saigon or South Vietnam. And we saw 2 types of people coming through there. Both had worked their entire lives. They were professionals. They had amassed some wealth back in their homeland, and then they were uprooted and they took their wealth with them. Some came with suitcases full of piastres, the Vietnamese currency of the day, South Vietnamese currency of the day. And if you can only imagine how much those piastres were worth as Saigon fell, absolutely nothing. So you work your whole life, you get uprooted, move to a strange land, and you have nothing to show for it. Folks that had converted their wealth into precious metals and gemstones were able to transfer their wealth across borders, and albeit in a strange land, they were able to start over where they left off in South Vietnam. And for us, that was an important lesson about the importance of having wealth insurance in your portfolio, and we think everybody needs it.
Well, that's the type of perspective that I was talking about that ASI has. I mean, going back with the founders of the company, having seen going back to the 70s and 80s, how precious metals have served nations where their currencies kind of collapsed. Here in the U.S., people may feel that we don't have those sorts of threats, but that's another conversation. So let me ask you about your perspective for gold, silver, platinum, palladium, looking out 6 months, a year, 2 years from now. What would you share with listeners about what you forecast or where you see how they're going to perform and why they should be part of a person's portfolio?
Understood. Well, it's a $64,000 question. Everybody asks it. Where do we go from here? When do we go up, more specifically? My personal opinion for wealth insurance, I really don't care the price of gold as long as I have 10% in my portfolio, or precious metals in general. But that's important to a lot of folks. So they want to know when they're going to start seeing a return on their insurance or their investment. It's been a tough 5-6 years for precious metals since gold hit its peak in September 2011 at $1,900 an ounce. Silver earlier that year in April had hit its peak of about 50, and it's been pretty much a downward move since then. The money's kind of flying over precious metals heads going into the equities market, which is now approaching 10 years, and I believe it is the longest running bull market in history at this point. So we've got a strong dollar, which is kind of fueling that fire and taking away some of the momentum or some of the wind in the sails for precious metals. It did show signs of weakening in 2017 with a 13% drop on the year, the dollar against the basket of currencies, the USD index. But we also saw a surge in the dollar second quarter of 2018 of about 7.5%. So I don't know if this is a bear market bounce or what, but it's having trouble getting over 95, which is a key level for the dollar index. It gets a little above, a little below, but it can't run up or down. I tend to think it's going to skew toward weakness, and that should be beneficial for precious metals. Now, even the most adamant stock market bull has got to think that time is running out on this long running bull market in precious or in equities. And at these levels, 26,000 or slightly above, you got to think it's going to start turning. I do think that with the dip below $1,200 in gold recently and the immense amount of buying volume that we saw come into the market at that level, I kind of look at it as a line in the sand that investors drew saying, here, it's cheap enough, I'm getting in. And we saw a lot of interest there, and talking to our friends in the industry, we're not alone. So I think it's an important level. We're showing potentially a short-term bottom here, and we're moving into traditional season where precious metals come to the fore. You've got the wedding season leading into Christmas, Hanukkah, Chinese New Year. So from September through February, you tend to see your highest prices of the year, and that's coming off a dip below 1,200 that shows a lot of buying activity. So with the recent drop below $1,200, we saw an immense amount of buying volume come into the marketplace. That coupled with the traditional buying season of the wedding season, which leads into Christmas and Hanukkah and Chinese New Year, most of the highs for precious metals tend to occur between September and February. So that's the time frame we're moving into. And when you look at 20 to 30 year lows in terms of sentiment for precious metals, I got to think that now you have a hated asset at bargain basement prices. And if your allocation is not proper, you ought to beef up and acquire metals here at these prices.
Well, I'd agree. People would call this, the contrarians are buying now, right? A lot of weaker hands, or people that like to chase momentum, right? They like investments where they're chasing momentum, that this is the time to buy, right? We saw, and we concur with your observation, there was a lot of buying about a month ago, right? 3 weeks ago when the metals really dropped. We saw two things. We saw some weaker hands selling, and we saw a lot of what we call stronger hands, bigger players, people you say kind of financially sophisticated, buying. The buying outweigh the selling by a lot. And to us, that's a good indicator, right? You're watching the type of investor who kind of is throwing in the towel and who viewed it as a great opportunity. So I agree. We see it kind of setting up. We are watching, and when we look at the conviction of what we'll call the bigger players, the more financially savvy, that they didn't lose faith, they saw it as an opportunity. So we're on board.
Chris, if you look at August of 2017, just by our numbers, and I think they may be indicative, we saw 20 to 25% liquidations versus buys. This year in August, we saw maybe 5% liquidations. The vast majority of people were jumping in the pool, not out of it.
And you're right, and that's not a unique experience at ASI. The people that both you and I talked to throughout the industry, that was the trend everywhere. So, it's a pretty strong indicator. Now, let's kind of go to the precious metals composite, the PMC ounce. Big important thing about the relationship between our firms now is ASI is an official dealer in the PMC ounce. As listeners may know, it stands for the precious metals composite. It's a patented turnkey physical precious metals, basically portfolio with each ounce you purchase. So, Rich, why did ASI want to become, why have they become a dealer in the PMC ounce?
Well, first off, I just got to say we are absolutely ecstatic to be part of the team. You're not a new product. You've been around for 10 years. You have a proven track record. And clients had been asking some questions. We obviously pay attention to some of the folks out there and what they're saying. And when you hear folks like Jim Rickards and Robert Kiyosaki endorse the product so wholeheartedly, you've got to pay attention and dig a little deeper. And that's where we linked up and met and started talking. And, we're very happy to be part of this unique product in our industry. Most clients, when they enter into the metal space, they start with gold or silver. And that's usually where they stop, even though they know they ought to have some diversification within the asset class, have some platinum, have some palladium. What they find is, one, to buy smaller allocations of a metal like platinum or palladium, bars and coins, it's not as cost effective as it would be if they were buying larger quantities like they are in gold and silver. Further, to figure out what that right mix is kind of tough. There's a lot of variables involved. That all the metals are affected slightly by different factors. So they don't all move in tandem. They move at different paces at different times. What you've done with your proprietary allocation of the 4 metals is you've kind of found the sweet spot. You've put it into a turnkey precious metals composite, one product that people can buy for instant diversification. You've made it easy for people to solve that problem, and most people get stuck and never solve it. So we're ecstatic to be part of this offering, and we love the fact that even though we can't guarantee past results and future performance, that the 10-year track record suggests that owning all 4 metals in this proprietary mix outpaces gold and silver on their own.
Well, that's great. You put it really well. And, we're thrilled to have you on board as part of the team. And let me ask you, share with listeners, if someone wants to reach out to ASI, they're interested in learning more about the PMC ounce and working with ASI to acquire the PMC ounce, how would they do that?
Very easy. 3 options. We have a toll-free number, 1-800-831-0007. 10 better than James Bond. We can be reached via email at moreinfo@assetstrategies.com, or you can simply go to our website. It's www.assetstrategies.com/PMC-ounce.
Rich, thanks a lot for sharing your perspectives on the market today. And we look forward to having you on the show again in the future to talk about precious metals.
Chris, looking forward to it. And just want to leave with just one thought. You've got a hated asset right now at bargain basement prices. Now is the time that folks should be buying, and we have plenty of PMC ounces to help you do so.
Excellent. Talk to you soon, Rich.
Thanks, Chris.